Vermont Congressman Peter Welch will be there as well, and he joins us now live from Capitol Hill tonight. Congressman, thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you.
Congressman, what are you expecting to hear from President Trump tonight, and what about this new immigration plan?
Well, a couple of things. One, what I want to hear and what I will hear, I think are probably going to be two different things based on the things that President Trump has been doing in his first 40 days in office. What I'd like to hear a very ambitious, well-funded infrastructure plan that's going to get broadband out to our rural communities, fix our roads and bridges, fix our airports, something that we all know needs to be done and will create good jobs, and it's folks in the working class who need to get a pay raise, and a big boost with an ambitious infrastructure program I think could really help. Second, I'd like to see him start focusing on how we're going to fix things and get off the campaign talk, like fix healthcare as opposed to talk about the impossibility of just throwing it out and blowing it up. I'd like to see us have a real conversation about the securing our borders, but having a responsible immigration plan, not the approach that we've been taking so far with this Muslim ban that was declared completely unconstitutional, and where we're starting to round up these young people and throw people out of this country who are no threat whatsoever. So the question here is, this is an opportunity for the president to really put the campaign behind him and start acting like the president that we all want, which is somebody who reaches out to unify. We'll see if that happens.
Well, I'm wondering if you've heard anything in those first 40 days from the president, or even more recently than that you agree with. Has he said anything that is acceptable?
Well, the things it's what he's not said that is disturbing me. I mean, the things about immigration that he did, the executive order, all his individual actions, a lot of his cabinet appointees, to education, to the environment, to energy, those folks have policies that I think are really bad for the country. So I'm not happy with what I've seen. But in the campaign, President Trump, then candidate Trump, talked about a couple of things that I am hopeful he'll follow through on. The big one, of course, is infrastructure, because roads and bridges, broadband, we need that in all America, not just the places that voted for Trump or the places that voted for Clinton. We need that, and I want to see him embrace it and move ahead. Secondly, he talked about bringing down the price of prescription drugs. That was a campaign pledge that he made. We need to do that. One of the issues in healthcare is the cost. And President Trump gets it when it comes to price negotiation. We pay the highest prices, and we don't negotiate with the buying power that we have in Medicare. So I'd love to hear him go back to those pledges that he made during the campaign that I think would be good for everybody.
Obviously, you're a Democrat and in the minority, but I'm wondering how much angst you sense among Republicans in the House and in the Senate who may be nervous about a president who still, to many, seems sort of like a loose cannon.
Well, you know, it's a good question, because there really is a lot of anxiety of my colleagues on the Republican side, and it's because there's such uncertainty. Like, for instance, take the health care bill. You have the president saying it's complicated, which is as though that's not news to anybody in this building. You've got Speaker Ryan saying he's got one plan. You've got the House Republicans, many of them in the Freedom Caucus, saying they'll never vote for the Ryan plan. You've got some members of Congress who are very concerned about what will happen to their states if Medicare basically gets cut way back. It'll really hurt the rural hospitals. So a lot of my Republican colleagues are dealing with the recognition that repealing health care is much easier to say than it is to do, and they've got some responsibility to come up with an alternative. And the anxiety they're expressing is they don't get a sense of any guidance and clear direction from the White House. That's disturbing to them.
All right. Vermont Congressman Peter Welch from Capitol Hill tonight. Thanks very much for being with us here tonight.